Well, the Supreme Court in recent years has been extremely awesome, extremely terrible. Just depends on the day. We wake up one day and we look at our phones and we want to chuck it into the ocean. And then other days they overturn Roe versus Wade, and all of a sudden slaughtering babies in mass is no longer the law in the country. So what's coming soon? Possibly another one. Joining me now, someone who knows a lot more about this stuff than I do, Alex Swoyer, author of the book Lawless Lawfare. She's with the Washington Times. Okay, what's the Supreme Court working on now, Alex?
Yeah, so one of the biggest petitions pending before the Supreme Court is you kind of referenced the Roe v. Wade issue. Now we have a petition asking the justices to overturn their 2015 ruling legalizing same-sex marriage. So that was the Obergefell case. And it rested on the same type of principle, if you will, a substantive due process, as what the court used in Roe v. Wade to justify essentially the right to an abortion. And what that really means is substantive due process has had a lot of criticism from conservative legal scholars because it's where courts basically say that there's these fundamental rights like marriage equality, the right to an abortion, that are not necessarily in the text of the Constitution, but guaranteed by somehow the 14th Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. So you saw basically in 2022, the Supreme Court take a look at that and say, this is suspect legal reasoning for giving women the right to abortion nationwide. This issue belongs to the states. Let's allow them to regulate that. They overturned Roe v. Wade. That was the Dobbs case. Now they're being asked basically to do the same thing with gay marriage and overturn their 2015 precedent with Obergefell. Now, the petition comes from back during that 2015 ruling. There was national news about Kim Davis, a Kentucky county clerk. She refused, based on her religious beliefs, to sign off on same-sex marriage licenses. She ended up doing 6 days in jail. The state later, passed some sort of exemption for those who feel religious beliefs interfere with their right to their ability to sign off on those certificates. But a gay couple sued, and they said that they were entitled to have her specific name on their marriage license. It wasn't enough for them that they could have a marriage license with someone else's name. They had to go after Kim Davis. And the lower court actually ruled for the couple on emotional distress. And so she was fined a few $100,000 in legal fees. She took that. That's the case that's actually before the Supreme Court. She's asking them specifically, can you give me immunity because I was a government official? I shouldn't be sued in this context. And will you overturn Obergefell? Now, two things on that. They could just take one of those. They could just say, we're only going to decide the immunity issue and not go ahead and go all the way and take up a potential challenge to their 2015 precedent. But there are 3 justices still on the court who dissented in Obergefell. That's Roberts, Alito, and Thomas. And they really would only need one more to join them and vote in favor of hearing this case and hearing that issue for it to be granted. I'm not sure if the court will go that far after they just did abortion, but we'll see.
Okay, well, fingers crossed. Of course, those filthy animals would try to make her put her name on the thing. That's just
It's
so
just wild,
apropos.
right? It's
All right,
not okay for someone else to
yeah,
sign off. Had to go after her.
yeah. It's friggin' gross. It's friggin' these people are the worst. Okay, let's move on to other things because there are other legal things and I'm too dumb to discuss them, like an emergency docket. Apparently one of those is coming, and I don't even know what those words mean, but it sounds really important. What's an emergency docket and what's coming?
Yeah, so this is really the biggest story, I think, of the Supreme Court era under the Trump administration. And I've reached out to the DOJ. I'm trying to get exact numbers because what somebody counts as an emergency docket petition is kind of speculative. Some people might count some petitions, some other people might not. What it really means is that when a party goes to the Supreme Court on an emergency basis, so we've seen that a lot with the Trump administration, with these lower court judges having a legal battle before them, contesting something that the administration is doing. The judge rules against the administration, usually a Biden or an Obama appointee, and then issues an injunction halting the administration from going forward. And so with that, the administration through the Solicitor General, through the DOJ, has gone to the Supreme Court on emergency basis and said, no, we need you to lift this injunction while the litigation plays out on the merits. So say if this is a challenge under whatever principle, if you will, like birthright citizenship, okay? They said, let that play out in courts, but still let us go ahead and start enforcing the agenda we want to. And that's where we're at. There is a major case. So there was two disputes out of LA when President Trump sent the National Guard into LA. One had to do with his ability to send the National Guard. That actually was upheld by the Ninth Circuit. They sided with the administration. So that did not go to the shadow docket to the justices to decide on emergency appeal. What has is that there's groups representing unnamed illegal immigrants and illegal aliens, if you will, and also other individuals who claim that they were unlawfully detained by ICE. So they say ICE is using discriminatory practices, targeting people based on where they work. For example, car washes, landscape companies, construction companies, and they're targeting people on race and the fact that they speak Spanish. Now, ICE says, hey, this is a totality of the circumstances. We're allowed to detain people, stop and ask for papers. If you look at all of these factors, it's a reasonable suspicion basis. So the lower court has sided with these illegal aliens and said, no, the ICE cannot use these factors in justifying a, I guess, broad sweeping stop. So that's what's going before the justices now on their shadow docket. They could rule on this anytime. So what this actually means, that lower court judge stopped the administration from being able to do their sweeps in LA. And I want to give you some stats, okay? 2 million out of the 20 million people that live in that central district of California are illegal, according to DHS. And 1 in every 10 people. So of course, ICE is focused there. Of course, they're looking at places. They said in their petition, they've looked at workplaces that have been cited 30 times for having illegals. Yet the fact that they go to that workplace, look at people who are speaking Spanish, that's not enough to justify them asking for papers. And so what this means with the shadow docket is that the justices will decide this based on just the paperwork, the filings from the council. They will not have any sort of oral arguments at this time. They might in the future, but on the actual injunction issue, they'll decide it on the emergency basis. And that's what a lot of people have criticism of. They want it to be, hey, let's do some more public hearings. Let's see this play out in real time. Let's know exactly where the justices fall. Sometimes when they issue these decisions on the shadow docket, they don't give you the exact breakdown of how they vote. So a lot of people call it shadow or secretive. But of course, it's necessary.
Shadow docket sounds really cool, though. Okay, so what about birthright citizenship? I know this is something it's ridiculous, obviously, that you can come over here and crap out a kid and they become an American citizen. Everyone knows it's ridiculous, but it is how it's established currently in this country. Are they going to tackle this? I know Trump's hot on it.
Yeah, I think that you're right that they are going to end up having to weigh in on this. Lower courts are still ruling against the administration on the actual looking at the text of the 14th Amendment. I do think the fact that they got involved in the first place with this issue when it came up on an emergency basis with the injunction problem, the Justice Department used the birthright citizenship case basically to get this to the Supreme Court in May, if you remember, on the whole issue of these lower court judges issuing these nationwide injunctions, blocking policy. And the Supreme Court basically said, yeah, we don't really find a basis for these broad district court judges, lower court judges issuing these broad sweeping nationwide universal injunctions that block basically more than just the parties associated with a case or even a class from the administration taking effect. So countrywide. What they're looking for is they said you really need to establish some sort of class action suit to be able to get some sort of relief like that. Usually a class action suit can take months to put together. Of course, these activists had one ready to go as soon as that Supreme Court decision came down. And so that's what we're looking at now. And I do think you're right. In the new term, I suspect we do see the justices have to take the actual merits of the birthright citizenship argument up.
Fingers crossed. Alex, that was awesome. Come back soon. I appreciate it. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.